Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to work on solving rational equations. But today we're going to work with 3 or more fractions are going to be involved with our solving. Okay, so this is very much different than what we were doing when we solved on day 1. So you're going to need your notes, a pen and a pencil, and a calculator, please. So our learning objective today, you guys, is that we're going to be able to learn how to solve rational expressions with 3 or more fractions. Here we go. Here is example number 1. Now, the wonderful, wonderful thing about having 3 or more fractions, you guys, is that we get to find a least common denominator. I know that you are very, very excited about this, so we're coming back to it, so get ready. So first thing we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is remember we're going to go through and we're going to find our denominator. So our denominator for our first one is just 2. I'm going to throw that in there. Remember, each thing has to have its own place, so 2 gets its own little spot right here. If I go to the next one over, my denominator is just x. Once again, x gets its own space, so it can't go under 2. It has to have its own, so we're going to move that over. And last but not least, if I look at my third fraction here, I just have x. Now I already have a column with x in it, so I'm going to put it in that column. All right. Next thing I like to do is I like to find my least common denominator. So I'm just going to bring those down. So I have a 2 and an x. These ones are not going to be needed in this case. So my LCD is 2x. Now we're going to go through, you guys, and we're going to find what we're missing. So if I look right here on this one, I'm going to look right here. This is missing. If I look in this row, it should be an x. So I need to multiply my first one by x. If I do that, I'm going to get 1x over my LCD. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the next one. See what I have open spaces. I have open space right here. It should be a 2, so I'm going to multiply my second one by 2. So I'm going to get a positive 2 times 2, so I get a positive 4 over my LCD. And this is going to equal my final one. So if I look here in this row, go across, this is what I'm missing. It should be a 2. So I'm going to multiply this by 2, and 1 times 2 is just 2 over my LCD. Now, this is my favorite part about solving. After I get to this point, you guys, this is super awesome. My LCD is going to go away, so I just get to get rid of all of this. Get rid of, get rid of, get rid of. Don't have to have that anymore. I'm just going to rewrite my new problem. So I'm going to have 1x plus 4 equals 2. Now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to solve for x. So in order to do that, you guys, I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. I get 1x equals negative 2. Or I could just say x equals negative 2. Now here is my solution, but just like before, you guys, we have to check. Okay, checking is very mandatory when we're doing this. So I'm going to check and I'm going to plug it into the original problem. So I'm going to plug it into my original. So I have 1/2 plus 2 over my x, which is negative 2, equals 1 over negative 2. So I have 1/2 plus a negative 1, or minus 1 equals negative 1/2. Simplify this side, I get negative 1/2 equals negative 1/2. This does work. This negative 2 is going to be my solution. All right, so there's example number 1. Very similar to what we've already done. Please make sure you know how to find that least common denominator. All right. All right, here is example number 2. So same idea, you guys. We have to fill in our table. So when we're filling in our table, we're going to go ahead and start with all of our denominators. So if I look at this one here, my denominator is going to be 1 if there's nothing. So my first one, I'm going to plug in 1. That's going to have its own space. I'm going to go ahead and find my denominator for my second one, which is right here. The whole thing goes together, that x minus minus 5 goes together, and it's got to get its own space, so x minus 5 gets its own space. And then last but not least, my last one, I just have an x. So x needs its own space, so I'm going to move it on over. Once I have this done, I really like to find my least common denominator. So my LCD, what is that going to look like? Bringing everything down. So I'm going to bring down 1. I'm going to bring down x minus 5, and I'm going to bring down x. Now the 1 really isn't going to change my problem at all, so I'm not going to worry about writing that. So I'm going to have x minus 5 for my least common denominator. Now I'm going to go through, find what each fraction is missing, and multiply the numerator by whatever it's missing. So if I look at my first one right here, anywhere there's an open space, well, this one's canceled out, so anywhere there's an open space. So I have an opening here, and that should be x minus 5, and I have an opening here, and that should be x. So I need to multiply my 1 by both of these. So I'm going to take it times x and times x minus 5. Well, 1 times x is just 1x, so I'm going to distribute this. I'm going to get x squared minus 5x all over my LCD. Then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go to my next one. This one right here, what am I missing? I'm missing 2 things. In this one I'm missing a 1. Here I'm missing an x. So I'm going to take, now this is really important, this is a negative 8 because of here, times 1 times x. So negative 8 times 1 is negative 8. Times x is going to be a negative 8x all over my LCD. And then you guys are going to go ahead and move on to my last one. What is missing? So my last one here, I'm missing what's right here and what's right here. Those are open spots. So if I look in my row, I'm missing a 1 and I'm missing an x minus 5. So my 3 here has to be multiplied by 1 and x minus 5. Make sure we don't forget about that equal sign. So 3 times 1 is just 3. So 3 times x, I'm going to get 3x minus 3 times 5 is negative 15 all over my LCD. Remember, best part about this, you guys, is once we get here, we get to get rid of those LCDs. So I'm going to go for this one, and this one, and this one, and we're just going to worry about what's in our numerator. So if I rewrite this, simplified, because I can combine these, I'm going to get x squared minus 13x equals 3x minus 15. Now I want to set this equal to 0. So when I'm setting this equal to 0, I'm going to subtract 3x and add 15. Subtract 3x, add 15, and I am going to get, over here, x squared minus 16x plus 15. Now, once this is done, you guys, and it's set equal to 0, I'm going to use my favorite thing in the entire world, which is the fabulous AC method. So I'm going to take A times C has to add up to B. When I do that, I get 15, 2 numbers that have to add up to negative 16. So negative 15 and negative 1. If I rewrite my problem, I get x squared minus 15x minus 1x plus 15. Group my first 2, group my last 2. When I do that, first one I can take out an x, so I'm left with x minus 15. Second one, this is negative, so I'm taking out a negative 1, which will leave me with x minus 15. So I have 2 that are the same, which is wonderful. Once we get here, I have x minus 1, x minus 15, these equal 0. So x minus 1 equals 0. X minus 15 equals 0, x equals 1, x equals 15. Now, those are my answers, but guess what? You have it, ladies and gentlemen. We have to check these. So we have to check 1 and 15. So this is all the work to get our solutions. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to check it. So when we're checking these, we're plugging it into the original problem. So 15 is going to go in for x. So I have 1 minus 8 over 15 minus 5 equals 3 over 15. I have 1 minus 8 over 10, which equals 3 over 15. 1 minus, if I want to simplify this, it would be 2 over 5, which is 3 over 15. 1 minus 2/5 is, ladies and gentlemen, 1/3, excuse me, 1/5. 1/5. Simplify 3 over 15 and I get 1/5. So that is correct. That is going to be one of my solutions. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm going to use 1. So I have 1 minus 8, 1 minus 5 over here equals 3 over 1. 1 minus 8 over negative 4 equals 3. So I have 1 minus 8 divided by negative 4 is a negative 2. 2 negatives make a positive, ladies and gentlemen, and 3 equals 3. So there is my check. All right, so in our case, both of these are going to be solutions that work. So make sure that you guys are checking these, please, please, and thank you. All right, so I hope you guys have had all this written down. We're now moving on to our last example. Here this wonderful thing is. So first thing, once again, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to find that least common denominator, one of our favorite things in the entire world to do. I am certain of it, I'm sure. So start here, first fraction. Here's our denominator. This is what's there. So I have x plus 1. That's going to get its own space. Moving on to the next fraction after that one's done. I have 2x. Remember, that means 2 times x. Those are separate things. So 2 needs its own box, and x needs its own box. Then finally, that one's done. We're moving on to our last fraction. X is in our denominator. We already have a column that has x's, so I'm going to put that there. We don't need this last one here. Not going to worry about it. Everything is filled out. Now I'm going to go down and do my LCD. So my least common denominator, we're going to bring it down. We have x plus 1. We have 2, and we have x. To write this nicely, we're going to get 2 times x plus 1. All right, once that's done, you guys, we got to figure out what is missing. So we're going to go to that first fabulous column here. Figure out what's missing, what we need to multiply our 3x by. So I have an empty space here and here. This should be a 2 and this should be an x. So I need to multiply my 3x by 2 times x. So when I do that, I take 3x times 2x, which is going to give me a 6x squared all over my LCD. My first fraction is now done. Moving on to the second fraction. Okay, so we're going to move on right here. What am I missing? This one? I'm only missing one. I'm only missing this right here. And this should be, if I look up and down, x plus 1. So I need to take my positive 6 times x plus 1. When I distribute my 6, I get positive 6x plus 6 all over my LCD. put in my equal sign, and we're going to go ahead and do that last fraction. So our last one here, what are we missing? Well, we're missing two things in this one. We're missing, it looks like, if we look up and down, x plus 1. If we look up and down the second one, we're missing a 2. So I have to take this times 2, and I have to take it times x plus 1. So 2 times 7 right away, you guys, is 14. I'm going to take that times x plus 1. Go ahead and distribute my 14 here. I'm going to get 14x plus 14 all over my LCD. Now my favorite part about solving, you guys, is once we get here, we get to cross off our least common denominators, which is exciting for everyone. So all of these are going away, going to simplify our answers. So I have 6x squared plus 6x plus 6 equals 14x plus 14. Now to make this nicer for us, I'm going to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 14x and 14 from both sides. And I'm going to get 6x squared minus 8x minus 8 equals 0. Now, we're like, woohoo, we're going to do AC, but, ladies and gentlemen, 2, 8, and 8 have something in common. So first thing we have to do is take out a greatest common factor here. All right, our greatest common factor for this problem is a fabulous 2. So I'm going to be left with 3x squared minus 4x minus 4 equals 0. Now I get to do the wonderful and fabulous AC. When I do that, I'm going to take a times c, has to add up to b. So 3 times negative 4, which is negative 12. Two numbers that add up to negative 4. In our case, it's going to be negative 6 and 2. So if I rewrite this, I have 3x squared minus 6x minus 2x minus 4. Go ahead and group the first two together and the last two. My first two, I'm going to take out a 3x. So I'm left with x minus 2. My second one is, this is negative, so I have to take out a negative 2. Oh, excuse me, this is a positive 2. I apologize, you guys. That should be a positive 2, so I'm taking out a positive 2. So I'm going to be left with x minus 2. These are the same, so I'm going to write these both out. I have 3x plus 2 is 1, and x minus 2 is my other one. And now I'm going to set both of these equal to 0, because we are solving. When I do that, I'm going to get 3x plus 2 equals 0, minus 2, 3x equals negative 2, divide by 3, x equals negative 2 thirds. That's one of my solutions. Then I have x minus 2 equals 0, so x is going to equal 2. Now once we find solutions, you bet it, ladies and gentlemen, we get to check. So this is all the work to find our answer. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to check our answers. So we're going to start here with 2, plug it in for x everywhere. So I have 3 times 2 over 2 plus 1 plus 6 over 2 times 2 equals 7 over 2. On the top, I'm going to get 6 over 3 plus 6 over 4 equals 7 over 2. If I add 6 thirds plus 6 fourths, I'm going to get 7 over 2 equals 7 over 2. This one does work. 2 is a correct solution. All right, checking our last one, we're going to check negative 2 thirds. So we're going to plug that in. We're going to have 3 times negative 2 thirds over negative 2 thirds plus 1 plus 6 over 2 times negative 2 thirds equals 7 over negative 2/3. When I'm simplifying this, I'm going to get a negative 2 over 1/3 plus 6 over negative 4/3 equals 7 over negative 2/3. When I go ahead and simplify this, I get a negative 6 minus 4.5 equals negative 10.5. When I combine these, I get negative 10.5 equals negative 10.5. And that, ladies and gentlemen, does equal each other, so it's going to be a solution. All right, wonderful people, make sure you're checking. If you have trouble with these fractions, you guys don't be afraid to use your calculator, okay? Make sure you know how to use that. All right, that's all I have for you, wonderful people. Thank you so much, and I'll be seeing you soon. Bye.